All right, welcome to the Evolution Podcast. And today we're going to talk about more or less communication between men and women, but specifically, there's something that happens in almost all relationships, and it really shuts down each person. And then they kind of get fed up, and then pretty soon the woman doesn't get intimate with the man. The man wants like the physical contact, but so does she, but she doesn't know how to tell him she does. She doesn't feel heard. There's fights, there's all kinds of different things, and it's kind of chaos. But what I'm going to try to communicate, and this may take more than just this podcast, but at least touch on a few of the things that are very important to kind of open some eyes here, specifically in men, but also in women. There are some things that women can do, some things that men can do, and start opening this up to where, men, you can get your woman to where she's jumping on top of you all the time, and you get what you want. And women, you can get to where the men will sit and listen and hear you and feel your feelings and be in a because create a safe space. It This is not easy if you're not already doing it, if you're not trained, and typically nobody knows how to do it. Like, this is something that we know how to do it because of the level of training that we've been through, the many experiences in relationships that we've been through. And sometimes breaking those relationships gives you an opportunity to show up different. And when you're in a relationship currently, it's really hard to make those changes because our ego wants to hang on to the stories that are running in our mind all the time. So we're just going to go back and forth. We know what we want to talk about, but like I said, this could be a full week, 10-12 hour day of training, full immersion, pulling stuff out and going through it like craziness type of training. But if we can just communicate some small pieces to get your mind to begin to think about it and to begin to realize, man, where you're fucking up and the power that you actually hold inside the relationship, and to stop guessing and to start doing is going to be a key piece of this. And women to actually hold the space while your men are trying to make these adjustments, to to just say, okay, well, I'm part of the problem here too, and just back off. And there's like no right answer, but I'll tell you one thing is a fact in this: if your ego takes control, you lose 100%. Like, you will lose. There will be no winning on either side. And eventually what happens is either people give up and they live the rest of their life in misery, or they get divorced. Those are the options. So
So what I'm seeing right now these days in just a lot of relationships and stuff is that you have a man and a woman, and woman is frustrated, feeling alone, drained, exhausted, overwhelmed, and like she has no support. And I see men um kind of giving up in a sense,
mhm.
and staying out of the way, like front like staying out of the way in a sense to please women, to please their wife or whatever. But that's making us women feel more alone when the guys stay away. So what I'm seeing is women, a lot of women these days, kind of praying and wishing and begging for their men to quote unquote step up. And that was the words I used in my marriage. Like, I just want him to step up, step up. But I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what step up meant. All I knew was I was fucking tired, feeling alone, and I wanted him to step up, but I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I needed something
Yeah.
from him.
And if she ever gets to the feeling of wanting me to step up, I'm so far fucked it's not even funny. So if you've heard your wife say something like, I just want you to be a man, or I just want you to step up, or I just want you to do this, you're pretty well screwed. Like, you have a lot of work to do. And if you think as a man that you can solve this on your own, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not going to play with you on this, because that's the reality. You will get in your own mind, and you have to realize that you're the one that got you here today. So if you think you can solve the problem to get out of the problem, you're crazy. You're out of your freaking mind. The reason that I can show up in this relationship at the level that we do, and we don't really have many issues or anything else, and she can express her feelings and emotions. If not, I pull them out of her, different things, everything else. I'm very content in being able to do this. You want to keep in mind that the level of training that I go through on a weekly basis is several hours on a weekly basis. And I have coaches that I spend on average 3 hours a week with in group style trainings or whatever. And if I've needed it, I go on one-on-one coaching. And I have very, very high level coaches that kind of help me keep my mindset where it needs to be as a man. Now, the world will tell you, keep her happy, do this. She's the boss, blah, blah. She's not the boss. Okay. Never will be. That God didn't design it that way. And that's what they want. They do not want to be the boss, period. But when your woman starts taking control, if she wants to be the boss, I mean, she has trauma. She's got stuff she needs to deal with and things to overcome. Because the reality is, when you show up as a real man and dominate as a man, not domineer, but dominate as a man, and you take responsibility and you provide for the family and you do these different things, they'll crawl in your lap all the time. And that's what they want. Even if they're telling you they want something different, no, they don't. The Bible will lay out the path for this, and it will tell you how to do it and what to do. But you've got to start challenging the narrative that has been kind of acerbated inside of the world, as far as men just being like, hey, I'm just trying to keep her happy. Dude, you can't. You have to keep you happy. And right now you're miserable. If you're happy, they come running. The men that are confident and happy, the women chase. Period. It just is what it is. So when you're in a marriage and all of a sudden you start doing things that normally you're not, where you begin not having fun, and then she's like, well, how come you're not doing this with me, and blah, 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 this, that, and anything else. It's like, well, because, like, if it, there's never going to be a time, hopefully, that she doesn't want to spend time with me. There's not. As if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, Jen will always want to be with me, by my side, spending time with me. And that's my goal. But if I'm going to go snowmobiling with the boys, right, like aggressive, hardcore, she can't come. Like, yes, I want her to come when she can. If she can learn, great. Yes, I'm great for it. But that's not the space. But I'm not going to be like, oh, well, since you want me there, I'm going to stay here, or feel guilty because I go. No, it's I go because this is what I desire, what I need. It fires me up. It makes me feel amazing. I love it. I crush it. If I got to go away to work, great. Do I want to see her get teary-eyed when I leave? No, I don't. But trust me, because I go do it and I show up and do what's required, then she desires me that much more. So the more I try to please her, the more I'd actually be fucking myself. That's the reality. The more I please me, the reality is, if I'm 100% myself and she shows up inside of that, do you think I have anything to fear? Nothing. Nothing to fear. And that's what happens. I do what I believe is necessary to do what is required, and she loves me, and I love her. And it's just like, there's a fit here that works amazingly well. And yeah, maybe that comes into like proper dating, proper getting to know each other, understanding what manifesting is and painting the picture of what you want, figuring out those desires, and then going through the process to finding that person. But if you're already in the relationship, you've got to realize, maybe ask the question, what do I want? And you each look at the paper and be like, this is what I want. This is what I want. Do you agree? If not, maybe it's time to move on. If there's some level of agreement, and I'm not saying this, I'm not saying like, I want you to do X, Y, Z. That's not what we're saying. Saying like, this is how I want to feel in my life, in my relationship. And it really isn't about her doing anything for me. It would be more about me doing things for her, right? Like, I want to have an amazing relationship. I want to be able to spoil her. I want to be able to, make her feel like she's just the most important person on the planet. Right? Like, those are my desires. And I know if I can do that, I'm going to get everything I want. Right? Like, it's just, it's a given. So when you're kind of looking at this, if you begin to look at the other person like they're the problem, they're not, you are. So don't look at the other person as they're the problem. And there's the biggest thing I'm going to say to the men, because I'm not a freaking woman here, but I know how to hold space and do certain things. But when you're a man and you begin to point your finger at your woman as the problem, you are the problem. Period. She is not the problem. You have the ability to take charge, to take control, and if she is a good woman, she will follow you. Period. Like there's no freaking messing around with this. That is how God set it up. And so now the caveat to that is, can a woman still dominate business? Yes. You might be thinking, well, how can a woman dominate business? But like, how does she out earn a man or do this? Well, there's different ways that a man can show up in a relationship, and there are very powerful women out there that crush business and do very well and are still very feminine. They've kind of figured it out, and so there is a dynamic that can be figured out. But the reality is, you cannot be pointing the finger at the other person and blaming them. So there's maybe we'll go through a few things. I'm like, you want to add anything to this or challenge anything I'm saying?
um I would say that I do believe like it is a man's quote unquote like job to you, because you, what did you say? You kind of pointed the finger and said it's the men's job to, what did you say exactly?
To just kind of take charge and
To
like,
take charge.
yeah.
I know that just from experience that when my men have stopped taking charge, I know there's things as a woman that I can do and I do to kind of like give you, my man, you, space to take charge now, because I know that there's things that I consciously do and don't do around you because I don't want to like beat you down in a sense, where you feel unsafe to take that role.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So basically what you're saying is, don't take on roles that you don't want.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the one to lead and take control and take charge, because when I was in that position, the reason that I put myself there was because I had lost trust in the man that I was with to be able to do that. I didn't trust him to take the lead. So I stepped into the lead, and that's what us women do, is we'll step in if it's not handled, basically. And the more we do that, the more we're in our masculine energy at that point. That's the more that's exhausting, and it's difficult for us, but it's like a survival. It feels like survival mode, because that's not really who we truly, that's not what we were made to do, but we do it when we feel like the men in our life aren't doing it.
Yeah, and women are much faster to do it than men typically. It's like if there's a problem, so, like if men see it as a problem, they'll attack it, they'll jump right on it. But if they don't see it as a problem, but the woman does, and she starts to take on that role, then she resents the man for not doing it.
A lot of times when us women decide, okay, we're going to take this role, we're going to take it, at that point we start criticizing every little thing you guys do. And so because we don't trust you to lead, we don't trust
Let's give
you.
an example so that they know what we're talking about. Like, is there like a
so we'll criticize you,
something, well, like a role that you would take on?
I mean, just like, I mean, I'm trying to, okay, let me think. Like, I don't know. Let me go back to my marriage, I guess. Um, asking if I would ask my husband if he would do something, right? He would attempt to do what I had asked, which is fine. But, in my eyes, he would be doing it wrong.
Mhm.
And so in my eyes, but in his eyes, he was doing the best that he could. Like he was, even though I had asked, maybe he was taking control and actually doing it. But I'm like, no, you need to do it this way, or you need to do it this way, or that's wrong, and I start criticizing every little thing he's doing. So
Mhm.
he kind of just would, throw it down and be like, fine, you do it. And he'd
Yeah.
walk away.
And then you would do it.
And next thing you know, I'm doing it,
Mhm.
and every little thing I'm now kind of doing, where instead of him doing it, I'm doing it because I don't trust him, and I'm criticizing everything. So we start to criticize everything you guys do, every decision you make. If
Nothing's ever enough.
nothing is good, it feels like nothing is good enough, because maybe it'll be like, okay, you're going to get the kids dressed for school. And I walk in and I'm like pissed now because it's not right.
Yeah, they're right. Like they got the wrong socks on or something.
Wrong socks, everything's wrong. And so I start, criticizing you for doing it wrong. And it's every little time that happens. It's like silly examples, but every time we criticize, you guys, I think, feel a little bit more beat down, beat down, beat down, and you withdraw, withdraw, withdraw. And as you guys continue to withdraw, us women continue to step up, step up, step up. And we don't really give you guys the space to even do anything within the relationship,
and
because
and men
you're
prefer
doing
to
it
be
wrong.
lazy
Because you're doing
typically.
it, because now in
Well,
our eyes you're doing it
but at the
wrong.
same time, we don't mind being lazy. Like a typical man, like if he needs to go hunt, he'll go hunt, and then he'll sleep, have sex, and sleep.
But
And just be lazy.
if
Like
you go
you know,
hunt, say you go hunt and you come home and you're so proud and you bring home this huge, you know, deer for
and then you
dinner,
bitch about
and
mud on my boots
I look at you and I'm
as I
like,
walk through the house.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then I
yeah, I've
say,
had that happen.
rather than seeing this beautiful piece of meat you brought home for us, I would be just criticizing the mud on your boots and the color of the whatever, and
I
like,
remember, I, I remember I was out like doing the yard work or something. Something that needed done. It's like it has to be done. It's not like I'm just choosing to fuck around. And the deal was with my girlfriend at the time was that I was going to work. I was going to pay for everything, but I needed her to like be a housewife. It was like, okay, if I'm going to work my ass off, help me out, make me lunches, keep the house clean. Like that's all I ask. Like I'm going to work, you do this, do your schooling stuff. Sounds like a fair deal to me. And so then this happens, and there's like resentment that she's having to clean. And I walk through the house to get a drink. Like I walk into the kitchen from the doorway to the kitchen with my boots on, and I get my ass chewed for getting the floor dirty. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Clean it again. Like I don't want to fucking hear it. It just that. But there's a point where it's like clearly this is a problem. Like why the probably why that relationship didn't work. But the reality is you have to be able to allow that space. And also there is something that I want to make very clear for the men is there is going to be times when nothing makes sense. She's not going to be rational. She's going to do something, and you have to be content enough with yourself to realize that something is not rational and stop, shut up, and walk away. Because if a woman is fatigued, whether it's internally in her body, emotionally, whatever it is, if she is fatigued, she becomes irrational. And some have different depths or higher intensities of rationality, but it's just like something doesn't make sense right now. Like there's some trigger or something happening, and right now is not the time to fix it unless she starts expressing to you, and then in which case you just sit there and listen. Like when you realize there's some level of irrational, something is just doesn't make sense to you, stop trying to make it make sense.
I think that if you're not in a relationship right now, that it's a good time to learn these things. So, in your next relationship, you can really be conscious about showing up and
Mhm.
creating the type of relationship that you want. So there's things you need to learn like before you get into a relationship. But then comes in a point where many of you have been married for 5, 6, 7 years and you're not having sex and it's almost like your roommates, then there gets to a point where you need to learn, now that we've already gotten this far and we're roommates, how do we fix this?
Yeah, and is it even worth it? Because a lot of people are like, screw it. This is harder. It's not worth it. Whatever. But you have to you have to make a decision on what you're going to do and stop living miserable. There's just no reason to suffer when you can have something amazing. And in order to have something amazing, it requires that you change. And it can be little things over time, and it makes a massive difference when you just add it up. And so when you're
I see a lot of women that are so kind of like angry at their men for um abandoning them in a way where they're like, I said, us women, we end up feeling very lonely in the relationship and we get very angry at the men. And one of the things I try to tell women is just to see that your man is not withdrawn from you because he doesn't love you or because he doesn't want to be there for you. He's withdrawn because he thinks that's what you want. He thinks he's trying to make you happy by staying out of your way, because every time he's in your way, he gets yelled at and he thinks that he makes you angry. So he's like, I'm just going to stay out of her way to keep her peaceful and feeling better, which makes you feel alone, but you have to know that his intention is like pure, as in like he's not meaning to hurt you by not stepping up or showing up, being the man that you want him to be, because he feels like he in his eyes he's doing the best thing that he knows what to do, because he doesn't know any better.
Yeah, so let me give a few things, like words of advice here. Um, one of the big ones is learn how to just shut up and listen and ask for more, even if it's irrational. Just be like, what else? And in order to do that, you have to be really content with yourself. If your ego begins to play the game of, why are you telling me this? Why is this, like, what am I, like, are you saying I'm doing something wrong? It's like if she comes to me and says, I don't feel like you're listening to me. Right. If she were to say that to me, I'm like, what do you mean? What, like, I always listen to you. Like, I'll tell you, I'll word for word tell you what you just said back to your face. It's like, no, that's not what she's saying. What she's saying is, I want space to be able to feel really safe to attempt to express my emotions to you, and at some point feel like you feel what I feel and heard what I said, and I can just get it all out. And guys, it won't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense until you do this, and then once you do it, it's like it makes perfect sense. And not only that, but the irrational stuff that comes out, there is a rational piece behind it. But if you can't hold space to be able for her to sit there and run through the process and speak and do everything else, and then tomorrow tell you how fucking amazing you are, then it's like, then it makes sense. But if you can't hold space to do that, it won't make sense. She'll feel unheard again. She'll distance herself from you even further. You'll be like, pretty soon you'll be like, I don't know what's wrong with her. Like, she's being a bitch, like, whatever, blah, 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 this, that, and it's like, not really calling her a bitch, but it's like she's acting like one or whatever. But it's this thing that begins to happen where you're like, what the fuck? And the reality is, it's like, no, you just need to slow down. But if you feel attacked as a man, you'll screw it up, because you'll say something like, what are you talking about? I just did this. I just did this. I just did this. Now you're justifying to her, the person that just needs you to listen to her, of what was this and what was that. And so she's like, well, you didn't, I mean, it's crazy, because what I see happen is, one person or the other says, well, you didn't do what I asked you to do on this day. And then the other one's like, well, and rather than be like, oh, you're right, I didn't. That's all that needs to be said. Right? Like, it could end right there. But instead, what happens is the ego gets involved and be like, Yeah, well, I was busy, or I had this thing going on. Well, you need to understand that I was blah, 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 blah. Stop. The fact is, if you said something or they said something to you, just own it. Just be like, oh, okay. It ends that quick.
One of the things too that I noticed is like when us women are expressing, and many guys take everything so like personal, and
Literal.
that's when you guys kind of like fight back. So the example would be is for me is like if I'm telling you like about my day and how hard my day was, like I did, I went grocery shopping. I did this with the kids, and the kids were just crazy in the car, and they were throwing fits, and I am just so exhausted and tired, and like it's just been such a rough day, and I'm just going on and on and on about the day. Like I think a man hears that and thinks like
It's his responsibility.
that what I'm saying means you're not doing enough or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
something I need to do more.
You need to do more. So rather than just hearing it out, you take it personal and kind of bite back, and then we feel like you don't understand us, like you're not
Or
hearing us.
blowing off the effort that you put in.
Right. And so like I would call like kind of what I just expressed, where I just kind of let it all out. That's what I would
Dumping.
dumping.
Yeah.
That's a feminine storm. I think when that happens, one of the best things a man can say to a woman is, honey, I just don't know how you do it all.
Yeah, so that's a good example, because the like the kids were doing this and that and everything else. Typical guy response. Well, did you try this? You just unvalidated what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
Every guy's going to do that. I'm going to probably do it too. Like I'm going to give suggestions. Well, what about this? What about that? But what the good thing is most of the time I'm in tune enough that when I respond back like that, and I'm like, well, did you try this? And I feel her energy just be like, like, really, you asshole, you just, and then her mind starts processing and be like, it's not, he's not wrong. She's like trying to get through it. And then I'm like, oh wait, the energy just switched. So,
Because
were you able, and then my job would be to go, oh, so, you know, well, did you manage it? Did you manage to get through it, or like what's up? And she's like, well, no, and she might even be like, it's not important. Like trying to be like, fuck this.
I think a man's typical response is not take it personal, but also yes, try to like solve all the problems
Yeah,
that I was feeling throughout the day. And like the last thing that a woman wants to hear is
she just wants to be validated.
how to solve the problems. It's like we don't
So,
need you to tell us how to solve the problems
yeah.
because we've already thought about it. In fact, we've been thinking about it all day. And that's another
And
reason why we're
well, and
exhausted.
even if I give you like the perfect answer, now what typically a woman will do is be like, oh, and I'm not good enough too. Great. And that's now you've created that dynamic, versus if she's talking and going through and it's miserable and all these things, which makes me uncomfortable because I want her to be happy, and now she's telling me how unhappy she is and I want to fix the problem, and I'm like, what do I do? It's uncomfortable internally for me to just sit there and be totally content and just go, oh, that must have been tough. Like, so did you figure it out?
That's all we need, like, is for the a man to like validate how we're feeling, and like we want you to feel how we're feeling. So when I come in with my storm, my feminine storm, that's actually beautiful if you think about it. um like you are kind of like
Yeah,
the
think
tree, the
about it this
grounded
way,
tree that
guys.
that
Like,
calms the
yeah,
storm.
think about it this way. She's got all this energy, right? And it's like this feminine thing that's beautiful, but under one frame fucked you up, but under a different frame of, there's this beautiful woman that is yours, that's coming to you, and she's about to connect with you. She's bringing you this special gift. And if you're smart, you'll sit there, listen, and like whatever you're doing, you'll stop and you'll put it down and you'll look at her and start listening and be like, oh, that must have been tough. Did you figure it out? Well, this did did you need me for anything? No, it's okay. Okay, awesome. Well, sounds tough. Anything else?
It was tough. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
what happens.
And then she's crawling in your lap, and you're like,
Well, you don't
"Yeah,
know what just happened, but you're like, okay,
yeah,
I'll take this.
yeah." Or she's like, "I got to go put the groceries away," you know, or something. You're like, "Okay," and you just nothing. Like you don't need to respond. You don't need to fix. You just need to absorb the energy, let it be, and move on.
Because the moment that we feel that, like from you, where we're like, you feel us, you get it, it is like, and
Yeah.
then it's peaceful again. And, after that, it's like you may need to go dump a little bit somewhere,
Maybe, maybe not.
you know.
Like if when you understand what's happening, and then you also understand energy, almost like there's a vibrational frequency that's coming at you, and it's this crazy storm or anything. As a man, if you get yourself content, you can gamify it to the point of being like, watch this, and just be like, what else? Oh, okay. And it's like seeing this storm, and you're mastering it, taking it in, gaining the energy from it, and just taking that energy in and capturing it for yourself. And then you get this peace, calm, anything, and then you can just be a beast in the bedroom if you want. But let me say this doesn't work out quite as you planned. She comes in, everything else, the kids are crazy, whatever. She's blah, 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 this, that, and everything else. And your response is like, well, did you try this? Did you do this? And then she's like, you can see her energy or frustration level up. And when you see that switch, either she gets this depressed feeling, or the energy of frustration comes out even stronger. When you see that happen, it's like, oh shit, I fucked up. Like, stop. Be like, how do what do I do now? Like, now it was already bad, and now I've triggered something else. Whether, and if she's repressing it, you really have to get creative. If she's getting more frustrated, you just have to serve, right? Do something of service, in that moment. Well, you know what? I sounds crazy. It sounds just like everything's crazy, hectic. Is there anything I can do? What do you need from me right now? And if you'll just do that, what do you need from me right now? And she would be like, she'll stop, think, and probably say nothing, and just be like, are you sure? Like, I'm right here. And if there's something you can do, just do it. Trust me, the few minutes that you're going to spend doing this is going to save you hours of hell over the next week. So it is a proper investment. Do the work. Okay. Now, if I'm not speaking about women that are traumatized and are crazy, and you probably shouldn't be there in the first place. Like, that is different. Women, if you're trying to blame the man, saying, yeah, I wish he would just do that. Shut up. You need to work on yourself. Okay. Like, I hammer more women than I do men currently, for a reason that I'm trying to get you to communicate your emotions. So this isn't all about the men, but men, I'm telling you, you have the power to do what needs to be done. Take it from me as permission to start being the fucking man. Okay, like, start digging in to say, okay, shit, God told me to be a patriarch over the family. God told me to love my wife. Let me explain what love your wife means from God. The way Jesus loved the church, right? The prostitute comes to Jesus. What does he do to forgive her? The murderer, or like all the crazy stuff that came to Jesus, what did he do? He just healed them and moved on. He didn't say, why did you do it? What was this? This is what you need to do. He just said, you're forgiven. Move on. Like that. That's how you love your wife. She's crazy. Thank God. I love her. Like, sounds like your day is crazy. So guess what? I still love you. She'd be like, what? I still love you. And she's that doesn't make any sense. Okay. But guess what's in her head now? She can't get it out of her head. It will have an effect. Now, women, your command was to respect your husband. Why? Because it's easy for you to love. It's natural. It's harder for you to respect, especially if you start to take over the role of what you think he should be doing, or nitpicking things, or getting all these other things. And when he says you should do something, you freaking do it, even if he's wrong. Now, if you want to give clearly communicate a feeling or a desire, or like, well, what about this? And if you feel like you can't trust him, get help first off, because it's probably not about you trusting him. It's probably about, your own internal stuff that needs to be healed so that he can do what he does, or maybe his, I don't know. But you both can get help if you need it. We help both sides, men and women. Relationships sometimes are just singles, whatever. But the reality is there's help inside of that to be had. So let me get to the point here. That's kind of like, there's just a lot going on. But the just love your wives, love your girlfriends, love your dates, your whatever. If they act crazy, whatever, just love them anyway. And the more you love them, the more the truth will come out, and you will see what's actually there, and how easy it is. Now I'm going to back up a little bit. As a man, if you really want to have an amazing relationship, fill her up constantly. It's not that hard. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's usually very simple. But there are going to be days when, if she is full, the world will drain her. And it'll be very easy for you to just give that little bit of extra to keep her on plane. Right. But if she's already drained and you're part of the problem, you can't fill her up after the tank's empty. You're fucked. So there are times when there are predictable times sometimes when it's like, at this time on this day, she's always crazy, right? The kids are nuts. It's the weekend, or, maybe they come home after school and she's doing this, that, or maybe she works and she gets home and whatever, all these different things. Fill her up before this happens, right? Right before you get to that point. Pour into her some kind words, do something that she likes, whatever. And if she does give you the, like, you're not doing it right, just stop and say, okay, I need you to show me exactly how it's done, because I'm trying to do something for you to show you my love. And so if you want to show me exactly how it's done, then I'll try to do better. And if I can't do it better, then I'll just stop doing it. How about that? Guess what's going to happen? In her mind, she's going to be like, shit. Or she's going to be like, I'll do it myself, or whatever, and it's like, she's angry. It's like, okay, fine. Then I'm fully turning it over to you. And if you're calm about it, now she knows the ball's in her court. Okay.
Well, what if I say, well, you should know?
You should know. Well, I just say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to have pride.
If you are a woman and you say, well, he should know what I like, or he should know how to do this, or he should know. My advice, and somebody told me this one time, was just give him the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Meaning, he doesn't know, so teach him how to win. Give him the keys.
Well, it's not even about teaching. It's about informing.
Show him how to win with you.
Yeah.
Inform him how to win, whatever.
There's about 1,000 different ways to do one thing. In my mind, somebody says, well, what about this? And my mind goes all different directions. I'm dyslexic. And so I see multiple outcomes, multiple possibilities, all these different things. And so I've gotten in the habit of just asking, what do you think about this? Do you like this? And I ask personal questions, in depth. I get to the point. I don't beat around the bush and hope or guess. Sometimes I will experiment and try things out and see what happens. But typically, if I have a question in my mind where I'm like, well, what about this? I'm not embarrassed to ask. You know what's embarrassing? Doing it wrong when you could have asked. That's embarrassing. So there's got an alarm going off for a second. But the main thing with this is to just be on point with, like, keeping yourself content. If you're not living a life that you love, if there's something wrong, if you are resentful and blaming the other person, then start doing something different. Stop being that singular person of just like, well, I'm doing this, so she owes me this, or I'm doing this, so he owes me that. Just stop. Men, hold space for your women. Love your wives. Women, respect your men. tell them, inform them, give them information. Like it takes practice. And most people have been in a relationship for several years and never actually gone through any training or communication or learning to level up your relationship. So be willing to put forth some effort to leveling up that relationship and having more from it. It's like going to school. Go back to school to learn more about your relationship. And you want to maybe close this out with?
I don't know really what else I have to say except for um the work, being conscious and intentional about learning this stuff can really just change your life and your relationships, and doing it all on your own and not seeking outside resources or help can be a longer and very frustrating process trying to figure it out all out on your own. So don't,
Usually it's death to a bad relationship.
yeah, don't feel like less of because you want to get help, because it's actually like pretty awesome. Like I'll tell you, if he wasn't doing the work, if he didn't have the coaches and all the things he was doing, like there's no way, like I actually wouldn't be with a man who wasn't getting some sort of outside like coaching or help, or just because I appreciate that, because I know that it takes work understanding yourself and understanding women, and the communication, all of it, like you know
Yeah, there's always more to learn. It doesn't matter where you're at. And I can coach people on a level that's just ridiculous, but I can't coach myself on that level. I can't. So trying to coach myself and to solve my own problems when, there's a point that says when you're in a triggered state, which is an emotional state based on a trigger, usually from the past, you're essentially losing your free will. You're losing your ability to see clearly. And typically if somebody gets into a banter or an argument, you're in a triggered state, then the triggers elevate and you completely lose your conscious awareness to have constructive thinking. You have reactive thinking and reactive responses, and that's destructive. And so having a coach that can kind of look and assess with things and be like, look at what happened here. Look at it from this perspective. And it's like, oh shit.
to help you see the blind spots that
Yep.
you are not seeing. And the more and more people that we work with and talk to, the more we see there's just so many patterns.
Mm.
And your girl may be crazy, but you're not the only one that thinks your girl is crazy. But there's ways to change your mindset around that and help her to be less crazy. Like it's all, like
Yeah.
everybody's situation is different, but it's all the same. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
And I'll speak to that a little bit. A guy can say she's crazy. Then I'm like, well, that's interesting because she's not when I'm talking to her as her coach. So what's the problem? And it's kind of a bitch slap in the face of being like, you're not being a real man. Like I can probably talk to most men that are like, she's crazy. Be like, yeah, she's like everybody has some level of bullshit. Okay. Everybody, me, her, everybody. That's called life. Jesus was probably the only person ever to walk the face of the planet that wasn't. So, but when it's like, yeah, there's this crazy going on, it's like, okay, yeah. But when that happens, I can just be like, look, this is what's going on. This is that. But if she were to do something completely offhanded, I would just stop and say, stop, look. Without really any emotion or anything with it, just be like, look. And she would have to be forced to look at it because I don't blame her for anything. I don't point fingers at her. I hold a certain type of masculine frame and a certain type of frame in our relationship that is very protective, very open, very much like if she is off for any reason, I need to know why. I need to know the emotion behind it. I need to know the story behind it. I need to know all the information I can behind it, because the faster she can move through it, the better. Not my responsibility to solve, but my responsibility to hold space. Because if I can create the safest space on the planet, that means she can fix it that much quicker. And for me, if she can calm me down in my chaos, that makes my life so much easier. And that can be as simple as her just touching me, right? She's got a very calming energy, and this might be different for different people. But if my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute, just running, stressing, like thinking about all these different things, and she's got a line that she tells me, she's like, it gets to be fun. And I just have to be like, fuck. And it just slows me down. It's like, that's true.
Mm.
Like, I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't get it, but she calms me down. So I know that if that is a value to me, in order for her to give that to me, I got to keep her filled up. I can go harder than most people. That, like, one of the things she'd say, I just want a guy that can keep up with me. And it's like I go crazy. Like, I mean, I've pulled like all nighters and go, and then I'm still in personal development constantly, right? Like, even though it's like all this stuff, I'm so focused on growing that, it's not about just going like nonstop. It's about growing nonstop too. So just, I hope you guys can take away something from this. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know how this is done, you're crazy, it doesn't make sense or anything else, I'm going to put it to you this way. If you want an amazing relationship, be a man. Like, the man can make it happen. The woman can assist. A woman can create the right environment. Women have, like, they have a lot of power. I mean, a lot of power. If women, if you're thinking, well, I can't do this or anything else, yes, you can. You can get in a man's heart and make him do things that are unbelievable. Just look at the Bible. Like, you can make a man righteous, you can make a man wicked. It doesn't matter.
I would think about this. I would think about, you know, think about how you acted and behaved at the very beginning of your relationship and go back there. So like in the very beginning, like the man you were a man was probably he was planning dates and picking you up and he listened to you and you couldn't say anything wrong and like it was just go back to the beginning. And when you as a woman in the beginning, you were excited and open and you wanted to just do everything for him and serve him and like go back to that.
Yeah, none of this. But if I do this, he does that, or he owes me this. Like, if there's like an owed type thing, or
No, in the beginning, you
like,
just want to do everything
yeah,
for each other.
yeah, it's like forgiveness is key. Remember that, God gives you grace. And so don't hold shit over other people's heads, or it'll be held over yours. Like, just let it go. It's in the bigger picture. You stretch out the timeline. This stuff, there's nothing there that is so bad that needs to make you suffer and be miserable for the rest of your life. Yes, it might be painful. Yes, there might be emotions. There might be triggers. We can deal with those. We can help people through that shit. But it's so important that you begin to heal and love and just have fun and take action and do these little things to where you begin winning and enjoying life. But if you're pointing the finger, stop. It doesn't serve anyone. It makes you look like a fool on both sides. Don't do it. Just let it go and start pouring into each other. And women, I'm going to tell you, you look at any man's daughter that wants to be around him, like gives him some affection, that he's like, yeah, she's my little girl, right? And when he does something for her, what does she do? She loves him even more, and he pours into them. Good men. I'm not talking about some asshole. I'm sure some woman's going to be like, oh yeah, this guy beats me and whatever. It's like, no, that's not a man. Don't confuse men with boys or tyrants. Okay, like, just get away from those people. But the thing is if, I've got a daughter, when she's responsive, when I do something for her, buy her something, do something, show up, she gives me a hug. I just want to do more. There's no resentment, no hate, no anything else. If it were to be, if she starts to be like, um, gets an attitude or starts looking like it's not good enough or anything else, how much do you think I want to do for her? Not a damn thing. But men are forgetful to your blessing, right? Like that's one of my blessings. I just forget. Like I'm just like, I don't have time to remember stuff. So you can fight with me, I'll forget. Doesn't matter, right? And unless you like kick me in the junk or something, I might remember. But think about it. Whether you kick the junk or kick the soul, or the emotions or the ego, the next time you're around, if your foot twitches, what happens? I'm gonna guard. And so if I have to guard myself every time I'm around you, you're not going to get no love, period. Right. So, but keep that in mind for the women, men. Like,
It's appreciation
you
for
gotta
the
love them.
women.
You gotta love them
Appreciate,
anyways.
appreciate, appreciate.
There's something you got to be willing to be kicked in the junk, and you got to be willing to get your heart broke. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. There's going to be times of triggers, fears, scared moments, all these things. Find them to be beautiful, not painful. Pain is an amazing thing if you know how to use it correctly. It's what brings people together. It's what qualifies love, and your soul wants both. It wants it to experience all of it. So, because of the pain I've been through, it allows me to love so much deeper. And I don't know. I if you want the authority on this, it's in the Bible. Jesus' example. Use it how you can, but that's how I use it. So I'm like, the thing for me is, I don't care what happens. I'll forgive it as fast as I can. The faster the better, because I know there's a plan. I know that God created me and her, and there is a plan there. And so I'm just going to go with it, and I'm going to be as Christ-like as I can in that process. But I'm also going to remember, or at least do my best to remember, to pour into her often, to fill her up so that she's full. Especially, like, if we continue this, and if we have kids, or even dealing with her son, it's like, okay, if she has to deal with the craziness of a child learning, right, chaos, and I want that to be done well, because I'm the man, like I want to be the patriarch of the family, so I want my kingdom or whatever ran well. What needs to happen? I need to keep her full. I don't need her running on fumes, running out of gas, and breaking down. And not only breaking down emotionally, but then what comes next is the physical breakdown and everything else. I protect her. I make sure she's putting herself first. Right? I put myself first. I make sure she puts herself first, and I teach my kids that they put themselves first. And I teach them to be as responsible as they can, as fast as possible, to be independent sooner rather than later, rather than just being kids. I don't make them be slaves. I don't make them be adults or anything else, but I educate them to make good choices. And the faster they begin to make choices, the easier it is on her, and she stays fuller longer. And I get everything I want, because I get to go produce. I get a woman that loves me, that wants me, that comes to me, that fills me up, that takes care of me in those times I need. And when shit hits the fucking fan, she stands by me and says, doesn't matter. I'm with you. We can do this. Period. That's created by me, not by her.
And then I get to feel safe with you, and I feel seen by you, and I feel understood by you, and that keeps me open, and it's beautiful. That's it.
Yeah. All right. We'll probably hit on this several times, but hopefully that starts a conversation of something different, to get men to investigate a different narrative, that you can have a lot more in this crazy, amazing feelings and cool things happening in your relationships, and women to be able to realize that the men are actually there wanting to be able to hold this space for you. They just don't always know how to. But when you're vulnerable and they can see that softer side of your heart, no real man wants to hurt that. None. But if you're edgy and you fight him, he's down for battle and he will hurt you. Just not intentionally, but just out of the battle. But when all of a sudden there's a woman or something precious like a little baby there that's like vulnerable, men are like, what do we do? Like, take care of it, protect it. Or like, we got this. Nobody's gonna mess. Nobody's gonna mess with this one. They're like, they a man becomes a protector when there's innocence. So show him the innocence, have that respect for him to be the protector, put it in his hands, and you watch him show up. So don't forget that last part. It's important. All right. We'll see you guys.
Good job.